ones we love and have for a long time is self-storage, where your tenants are boxes, not people.
Yeah, it's fairly simple. There's no tenant improvements. It's no long-term leases, but also not as much turnover as you might think, right?
Yeah.
Because people just store their junk and they leave it there and it becomes an extension. It's like a virtual garage and they just, not virtual, I mean, it's an extended garage or an auxiliary garage, but they just pile all their crap up and they leave it in there and they pay month in and month out for years, in some cases decades, and it's not a lot of work. It's fairly high utilization in terms of space and what you can collect in rent. It can be fairly low maintenance.
It can be, and there's specialties within it, and we'll touch on some of those. But really, self-storage grew out of expensive real estate markets where people had a lot of junk in their garage and said, rather than buy a bigger house, we could go store this somewhere else cheaper, and it became kind of a little niche market. And today, you see it kind of all over, and in some markets, stronger than others. So occupancy is a big thing. What is self-storage at its core? It's leasing space to someone who's going to store something, and what's great about that is you do not have the tenant-landlord law issues that you have in most residential, which can be very limiting to landlords.
And it's not just people and their personal crap. It's businesses and their stuff. You know, you think about like document storage, which is kind of a subset of storage in general. And why would a law firm or a medical practice that is paying a high per square footage rent for the office space they're occupying waste that money storing boxes of records that they have to keep for, when I was in the mortgage business, I had to keep records for 7 years.
Right.
Those all ended up in a self-storage place. I wasn't going to pay office premium financial district rent to store boxes. And so that's another aspect of self-storage and why businesses would be interested in doing it.
Well, and of course, today, most people are going to archive that electronically. We have all of our real estate transaction records for years and years electronic, but the law in many places requires you to have a physical copy.
That's
still, right? Not just an electronic copy, and not even if it's backed up. You want that for business purposes. So you can glean names and stuff, but at the end of the day, there are uses for space. And so it's an interesting niche. Now, what's different about it is there's sometimes a residential component. Many of these small self-storage areas actually have a live-on caretaker and or manager.
Yeah. Oh, no, you can totally do that. It's, in fact, I've got a friend who did that for a long time, and they actually lived right there on the property and handled it. And you can store other things besides stuff inside. I've seen people, I've got a self-storage space, as a matter of fact, where people have boats and cars and RVs. And these are just things that people own. They're attached to. They don't want to let them go. They need a place to park them. You could have a place that has no building. It's just an empty lot, and it's just holding these big vehicles. And that's another form of self-storage that doesn't even have any improvements on it.
All right. It's a fascinating subject and one that we've been intrigued by. We actually had some folks on our Investor Summit one year who that's what they did. They did self-storage. And we have a couple other people that are looking at getting into it. So interesting place. Of course, like anywhere else, you want to make sure you're understanding the intricacies of it and where demand is and all of that. Another interesting